Bonjour, French 2 students. Here is the teaching lesson for your French 1 review over Unit 4. So, those of you who had French 1B last spring, during COVID, this is going to be vocabulary that you may need to spend some time on because remember last spring we didn't have vocab quizzes, we didn't have lesson quizzes. So other than doing your homework, there was no way for me to kind of force you to learn the meaning and spelling of this vocabulary. However, as we move forward in French 2A, I am going to assume that you know the meaning and spelling of this vocabulary. So my suggestion is that you turn in your textbook to pages 184 and 185, where it summarizes all of the new vocabulary for Unit 4, and you make sure that you know that. That may mean that you need to spend some time the first 2 or 3 weeks of school doing more than just your homework assignments and making sure you know the meaning and spelling of all of that vocabulary. So some of the vocabulary that there was people and adjective vocabulary. There was vocabulary related to objects around the house, so like car and poster and all kinds of different vocabulary for things that are in our classroom and things that are around our house. There was the new verb marcher, which has can mean two different things. For people, it means to walk, and for things, it means to walk or to run. It was a regular ER verb. There were prepositions of place on page 144. These will be important sometimes in questions because you learned dans, sur, sous, devant, and derrière. So in, on, under, in front of, and behind. Okay, so again, it's very important that you spend some time making sure you know the meaning and spelling of this vocabulary. So, you also learned the irregular verb avoir. Remember, irregular means that it's one that you have to memorize. So, again, if you don't recall this verb from last spring, it's going to be important that you work at it. Okay, so the verb avoir means to have. Again, it's a very common verb in French. We're going to use it a lot as we move forward in French 2. So it is an important verb to remember, and it is on page 152 in your textbook. So the forms of avoir are j'ai, because it starts with a vowel. We do lose the E on the je. Tu as, il or elle a, nous avons, vous avez, and il and elle pluriel ont. S'il vous plaît, répétez avoir, j'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. And remember, in these plural ones, you're going to hear these S's as Z's because these verb forms start with vowels. So anytime we have a word that starts with a vowel and the word before it ends in an S, you hear those S's as a Z sound. So one more time, s'il vous plaît, répétez avoir, j'ai, tu as, il a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont. And remember, if we wanted to make these negative, we'd add the ne and pas around the verb, right? And the verb is what's in green here. So if I wanted to say I don't have, it'd be je n'ai pas. And you would do that with all of those. You'd add the ne in front of your verb and the pas in behind your verb. And for this one, because all of these verb forms start with a vowel, it always would be an apostrophe. So, also, there were 3 expressions that use avoir. Again, these are expressions that in English we wouldn't use avoir with, but in French they do. 2 of them were ones that you had learned in units 1 and 2 of your textbook. Avoir faim and avoir soif. Avoir faim means to be hungry. And avoir soif means to be thirsty, right? So in English, we use the verb to be, but in French, you're literally saying to have hunger and to have thirst. The other expression that you had learned was avoir, a number, and an, for talking about your age. So again, those were all expressions that you had seen previously in units 1, 2, and 3 of your textbook. But again, your textbook now is kind of coming back to things and saying, hey, I know you've learned this before, but we didn't talk about it in terms of grammar. So here's the grammar related to this. So this is the irregular verb avoir. So, continuing kind of with this theme of things you had seen before, but hadn't necessarily specifically learned about, we come to the definite articles. Now, again, you had been introduced to this in units 1, 2, and 3, but your textbook didn't specifically teach them to you. So the definite articles mean the. And remember, okay, this is because in French, all nouns are masculine or feminine. Oops. Okay, and so because all nouns are masculine or feminine, we have different forms of our articles. Again, one way to kind of remember the definite is we're asking for something specific. And if we're asking for something specific, then we're going to use the. So, depending upon the noun, that's what determines the article. If you have a masculine singular noun, your article is le. If you have a feminine singular noun, your definite article is la. And if you have a masculine plural noun, your definite article is les. And if you have a feminine singular noun, or plural noun, your article is lay. So remember, this is part of how you know whether or not a noun is masculine or feminine, right? So if I tell you that a word is la pizza, that tells you that the word is feminine. If I tell you that the word is le garçon, that tells you that the word is masculine. Remember, learning these articles is part of learning the vocabulary. So when you learn vocabulary related to nouns, right? People, places, things, ideas, part of learning that vocabulary is learning the article along with it. Now, the definite articles are also used in general statements with the verbs aimer, préférer, détester, and adorer. So anytime you use these in a sentence, you always use the definite articles. Okay, so aimer, if you remember, that means to like. Préférer means to prefer. Détester means to detest or to hate, and adorer means to love. And when you use these verbs in sentences, you're making general statements about things, and so you're always going to use the definite articles in French. You also can put the definite article in front of the day of the week, in which case it means that whatever you're talking about, that you do that event every week on that day of the week. So for example, if you go to church every Sunday, to say that you do it every Sunday, you would say le dimanche. So by putting a le, this definite article, and it's always the le, it's never any of the other forms of the definite articles, but by putting le in front of the day of the week, it means that you do something not just this one time, but it means that you do it every week on this day of the week. So it's a way to talk about something that happens over and over again. So that's the definite articles. Those are on page 153 in your textbook if you want to take a look at it. We also have the indefinite articles. So these are the other articles. These are the articles. Oh, and one thing I did forget to mention. Remember that le and la become L apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. Sorry, don't want to forget to mention that. Hopefully you remembered that on your own, but just in case you had forgotten that. So the other articles are the indefinite articles. Again, you've been introduced to these before. These are the ones that mean a or an in the singular, and in the plural they mean some. Again, indefinite means we're not asking for something specific. So again, we're going to use the indefinite article. For example, if I say, give me a book, that means that I don't care what book it is, just give me any book will do. Remember, that's different than saying, give me the book. When I say the book, I'm asking about a specific book. So again, you have to decide which one of these articles you want to use. You only use one or the other. Just like in English, you never say, give me the book. You don't do that in French either. You choose either a book or the book. You never use both of these together. Again, the masculine singular form of the indefinite article. So if the noun is masculine and singular, my article is un. If my noun is feminine and singular, my article is un. If my noun is masculine and plural, my article is de. And if my noun is feminine and plural, my article is de. So again, kind of to look at an example here, if I have une voiture, that means a car. If I want to say some cars, it becomes des. And I also add an S on the word voiture to make it plural, similar to what you do in English. So une voiture versus des voitures. Again, I know the only article I can use with voiture is une, because the word voiture in French is always feminine. So it has to be the article une. So again, here is that idea that seeing these articles tells you whether the noun is masculine or feminine. So in negative sentences, however, though, all of these indefinite articles, so un, une, and de, all become de or d apostrophe. So if I want to say that I don't have a car, it's je n'ai pas. And because it's a negative sentence, it's going to be de voiture. So when do you think it's going to be D apostrophe? Again, hopefully you're kind of catching on that that's going to be before a vowel or a silent H. Oops. Okay, so again, these are the indefinite articles, and they're also on page 153 in your textbook. The next big thing that was introduced in Unit 4 were adjectives, and adjectives are describing words. Most times adjectives describe nouns. So remember, what's kind of weird about French is that these nouns are going to be either masculine or feminine. And so that does add kind of a level of kind of extra detail to French, because our nouns are masculine or feminine. Our adjectives will also have to agree with those nouns. So adjectives, the first thing about them is when you look them up in a dictionary, a glossary, if they're on a vocabulary list, the form that you're given will always be the masculine singular form of the adjective. Adjectives must agree in gender and number with the noun it describes. Gender means masculine or feminine. Number means singular or plural. Okay, so we have to look at the noun every time and decide. So, what you do is that masculine singular adjective, so I'm going to, when I kind of fill in this little chart about what I add to the end of my adjective, I'm going to kind of put a little X here because I don't do anything to a masculine singular adjective. That's already the masculine singular form. But if I need to take that masculine singular adjective and make it feminine, I'm going to add an E. If I need to take that masculine singular adjective and make it masculine and plural, I'm going to add an S. And if I need to take that masculine singular adjective and make it feminine and plural, I'm going to add an ES. Now, there are a couple exceptions here, okay? So this add an E, I do that unless the adjective already ends in E. Then I don't add an extra E to make it feminine. Okay. There's a little exception to this add an S. Okay. So this add an S part, I do that unless the adjective already ends in an S. Okay. And we're going to practice a little bit with some of these adjectives in a couple minutes. So we'll look at that in a moment. The placement. So where do I put adjectives in sentences? Because in English, our adjectives typically come before the noun. So we would say a brown dog, a large car, a small child. Okay? But in French, it's different. The adjective follows the noun it describes. And again, we're going to look at some examples of that in just a moment here. Now, there were another set of adjectives that you learned in this unit last spring. Now, these I refer to as the bags adjectives. And these bags adjectives have an irregular placement. They're irregular in that, okay, they go before the noun. So these adjectives go between the article and the noun. So we can kind of say they go before the noun. And again, we're going to look at some examples in just a couple moments. Okay. Now, there are a total of 9 adjectives that do this that are bags adjectives. Okay. And bags stands for beauty, age, goodness, and size. So it's a way to remember these 9 adjectives. So the beauty adjectives are, and again, I'm just going to give you the masculine singular form, Jolie and beau. Now, beau is irregular. The feminine form of beau is belle. So I'm going to give you the feminine one as well. So these are the B adjectives, the bags adjectives that are for beauty. For age, we have jeune. And this would be one of those adjectives that is the same in the masculine and feminine form because jeune already ends in an E, so you don't add an extra E to make it feminine. So this is an age one. The other 2 age ones I don't want you to use yet, but I'm going to give them to you. You're going to learn them in French too. But at this point, you can't use them yet, okay? So vieux and vieille, this is the masculine form followed by the feminine form. And nouveau and nouvelle. So vieux and vieille mean old, and nouveau and nouvelle mean new. Okay, so these are A adjectives, but I don't want you to use them yet, okay? But I'm telling you them so that you know all 9 of these. Adjectives, so we have our B, our A, so we're on to our G for our goodness. And one of our goodness adjectives is bon. The feminine form is a little bit irregular. It gets that extra N-E to make it feminine. So bon and bon. And our other goodness one is mauvais. Again, just the masculine form here. And then we come to our S adjectives. For size, our S adjectives are petit. Again, just the masculine singular form. And grand. Just the masculine singular. So hopefully you remember what these adjectives mean. Jolie means pretty. Beau and belle mean handsome or beautiful. Jeune means young. Vieux and vieille mean old. Nouveau and nouvelle mean new. Bon means good. Mauvais means bad. Petit means small or short. And grand means large or tall. So these are our bags adjectives, and there are 9 of them. So a little practice, okay? If I want to say a blue car, so blue isn't one of our adjectives, our bags adjectives, so it's going to go after the noun. So this is going to be une voiture. Now, because I used an une voiture, that tells me voiture is feminine and singular. So bleu, B-L-E-U, that's my masculine singular form of my adjective. I have to add an E to make it feminine and singular. Now if I want to make this plural, and I'm going to use a little different adjective. Notice I'm using small. Well, small, that's one of our bags adjectives. That means that that adjective is going to go between our article and our noun. So some is plural, so it's going to be des. Small is petit. Here's my masculine singular form of petit. But again, car is feminine and it's plural here, so I have to add an ES to it, and then I have voiture. If I want to say a shy man, shy is the word timide, and it's un homme timide. If I want to say a shy woman, it's une dame. Now, timide already ends in an E, so this is one of those adjectives that I don't add an extra E to. So this is one of those adjectives that the masculine and feminine singular forms are the same. They'd also be the same if they were plural. So if I had made this day, homme, then I'd add an S on timide. And same thing if I had made this day, dame, there would be an S on timide. If I talk about a French man, so un homme, again, French isn't a bags adjective, so it goes after. Okay, so un homme français. And if I want to say some Frenchmen, des hommes, with an S on it. But français, again, is one of those adjectives that already ends in an S. So its plural form is the same as its masculine singular form because it already ends in an S. So those are those 2 exceptions that we talked about back here, right? Those are this exception here and this exception here. All right. If I want to say a funny boy, the word funny is amusant, and the word for boy is garçon, so it's un Garçon, and because funny, again, is not one of my bag's adjectives, it's going to be after. So it's un garçon amusant. If I say some funny boys, again, my article changes from un to de. Garçon needs a C on it, or a S on it, to make it plural. And then amusant, I have to add an S to it to also make it plural and agree. So with adjectives, you really do need to be paying careful attention because you have to pay attention to your details. You have to make sure your adjective is agreeing in gender, so masculine and feminine, and number, singular and plural, with the noun it describes. All right, the last thing that was in Unit 4 was ways to say it is or it's. And in French, there are two different ways to say it's. And the way that you use depends upon the rest of your sentence. So you're going to use il or la as your way to say it's when only an adjective comes next. So for example, if I want to say that she is pretty, then it's going to be L-A Jolie, and my Jolie needs to have an E on it. I use say, when there's a noun in the sentence. So, for example, if I want to say she's pretty, or she's a girl, it's say une fille. If I want to say she's, and so this is kind of also true for she's or he's, okay? It's also, I still use say, even if I want to say she's a pretty girl. So even if I want to say une Jolie has to come before fee because it's a bag's adjective. Because I have a noun in this sentence, I still have to use say. And then these are the plural forms of these, are il or elle saute and se saute. If I want to make these negative, it's il or elle ne saute pas. Okay, and it would be ne pas. If I want to make se saute negative, it's going to be se ne saute pas. And if I want to make say negative, it's going to be se ne pas. So that gives you an overview of Unit 4 to make sure that you know this grammar and vocabulary as we move forward in French too. Au revoir, à demain.